All right, everyone, we've got more bug news today. Before we get into it, like and subscribe, comment if you want to. Like to see the interaction, it helps me out a lot. This article came out from the Chicago Tribune yesterday. Climate change threatens overall firefly populations, study shows, but Midwest could see increase. So this is generally a good article. I generally have problems with any article that just outright blames climate change because it's kind of lazy, and it doesn't, what would you say, empower individuals to take action to assist in conservation. It kind of just whitewashes everything in climate change. You can't do anything individually, and people just tend to not pay attention to this, or they kick the can down the road when they could be taking action to help things like firefly populations. This is overall a good article. It talks a lot about things that individuals can do to help out in their local area, and that, it's not all doom and gloom. There are places where firefly populations are increasing, and it's generally a pretty good article, although it is pretty long. What I wanted to talk about specifically with this is the conservation aspect. Fireflies, people don't frequently know this, have fairly long life cycles. They start off as glowworms, usually in leaf litter, and it can take several years for them to reach adulthood. So any sort of disruptions in the environment can cause them to die, because it's not like they're reproducing extremely quickly like you see with cockroaches or ticks and things like that. So they do take a long time to reproduce. So you do have to be pretty mindful of what you're doing on your property that might affect these populations. And overall, I don't know if you've noticed this is a recurrent topic that comes up every year. Fireflies are people's favorite insect, or one of people's favorite insects. And every summer there's lots of articles on where are all the fireflies going. And a lot of the time this is because people are living now mostly in incredibly densely packed urban areas. And you're just not going to see large firefly or lightning bug populations in these areas. When I was growing up, I lived kind of on the edge of the city in the suburbs. Those places, and we had lots and lots of fireflies. Those places now are really central in cities because of how much cities have expanded, how much suburbs have expanded, and you just don't see the populations in those old suburbs anymore because they are so overdeveloped. They're so densely populated. And one of the bigger issues is that they're so tightly manicured. The lawns are, cut within an inch of their life. HOAs don't allow you to let your backyards go to nature, as it were, and it has a huge impact on the local insects. But kind of some of the problems with this, I've already mentioned the climate change narrative here. Whenever you appeal to climate change, there is an issue of either people aren't going to pay attention, or people feel, well, I can't do anything. We have to do something with the government, or we have to do something against corporations. If you are pushing a conservation message, this is just not a great way to do it. You need to empower individuals to take action within their local communities to increase populations of whatever it is that they're concerned about. We're not talking about pandas here. We're not talking about, I don't know, some rare bat that it's hard to find this population. We're talking about fireflies. These should be pretty much everywhere. And so you can take action on your own properties to help out if you want to see more fireflies or lightning bugs in your area. So it's really important that with these articles, that they need to strengthen their appeals to the individual. This article does an okay job with it, but overall, just constantly talking about climate change or this, a new study shows something. Stop appealing to the latest study when you're talking about conservation empowerment articles. The studies change. There's constantly conflicting studies. It takes a long time for anyone in the scientific community to kind of weigh which study is better than some other study. And because things are constantly coming out, there's constantly contradictory information. If you're trying to push a conservation message, might as well appeal to conservation methods that we've been using for the last 100 years, because we know what works. So it's just kind of this scientism of, we'll appeal to the experts, we'll appeal to the researchers. They're not some priestly caste that can tell you what to do. We have established methods in conservation that we know work and might as well use them. So with this, I wanted to go into some of the conservation issues. So like I said, these are, lampured fireflies or lightning bugs. They have long life cycles. They're generally carnivorous. So if you want these on your property, you're going to want to foster a property that is good for all insects, an abundance of small insects, so that there's things for the fireflies to eat. One of the issues that people have that I want to talk about extensively is, and I say people have, one of the issues that fireflies have and small animal conservation, small insect conservation has, and plant conservation has, is the use of commercial landscapers. And these have been a nightmare for conservation in all sorts of ways, and it's just not talked about. So everyone now everyone now lives in an HOA, which is terrible. And these HOAs have lots and lots of landscaping requirements, which are also terrible. And they tend to use commercial landscapers for either everyone's yard or for all shared spaces. And these spaces are manicured within an inch of their life. The grass is mowed every week or every other week. The trees are trimmed back. All of the leaves are raked up. It's absolutely terrible. And cities now use this for public areas as well. Parks are constantly being mowed and raked, and the trees are being pruned, and the sides of the highways are mowed down to almost bare earth constantly. Even if it's in full bloom and you have lots of flowers and lots of shrubs and things like that, everything just gets mowed to little nubs every other week. It's absolutely terrible. One of the things, how this affects fireflies: one, it destroys the insect populations in the area. But two, fireflies tend to live under leaf litter. So if you want good firefly populations in your backyard or in your neighborhood, you need areas where the leaves are allowed to sit over the winter. The fireflies live under the leaf litter, under the snow, and this area has been kind of termed the subniveum. It's the area beneath the snow above the earth that is insulated by leaf litter and by snow, and it remains relatively warm through the winter, and lots of things live in that area. So you have to leave some of the leaves. I think it's the author, or it was someone that they're interviewing in this article, talked about how he always raked the leaves to the perimeter of his property instead of bagging them up or incinerating them. And he left the leaves there over the winter. This is great. It allows composting for the soil. It allows animals to live in the leaf litter over the course of the winter, and you end up with a lot more insects and things in your yard. So I would encourage you to stop raking. If your HOA demands that every leaf be raked up, contest the HOA rules, explain the situation with conservation. If you live in a municipality that is constantly doing this landscaping on public areas, appeal to the local council to try and stop them from doing this, explain the situation. It's just not good. Along with this raking thing, the constant mowing of every square centimeter of grass and cutting down every blooming flower destroys the insect populations. It destroys the firefly populations because there's no more food for them. There's no flowers for them to rest on. It just constantly is pushing things out. People talk about the impact on pollinators. That's a huge issue. You're destroying, in the middle of the summer, if you have clover growing and you mow it over, that might be the only flower that's blooming for butterflies and bees, and now you've destroyed it. It's a huge issue. But on top of that, this constant manicuring of lawns, these commercial landscapers tend to spread invasive species really badly. In the United States, if you are in the southern part of the United States, you are extremely familiar with fire ants. The reason that they are so widespread is largely because of commercial landscapers. The movement of sod across state lines, spreads these ants. There is a federal quarantine, basically a north-south quarantine over where landscapers can work because of these ants, and they still manage to spread this. So the trade in sod spreads these fire ants. The trade in mulch spreads these fire ants. the trade in soil spreads these fire ants. It's a huge problem for the southern United States. And it's why the fire ants have spread to basically every southern state. They're in every yard, every rural property. It's an absolute nightmare. Additionally, the sod trade and the mowing trade spreads invasive weeds. These commercial landscapers will mow, the sides of highways for 20 miles, and then pack that equipment up, go to another state, and do it over there. And they don't clean the equipment. It's full of seeds from all of the plants that they just mowed, and a lot of those seeds are from invasive species. Now the next state over has these invasive species. They do this from city to city, and it spreads like wildfire. The same thing goes with spreading plant diseases. Their equipment isn't cleaned, and they prune some trees that are infected with some fungus or some virus, and then they go the next city over, the next neighborhood over, and they prune those trees, and they spread the disease that way. It's a huge problem. Additionally, if you are the kind of person who likes to mulch your trees, mulch your bushes for the winter, you may think, well, this is great. This is giving some insulation. Yeah, maybe. But the other thing it does is spread ants. That mulch is full of fire ants, like I talked about. It spreads cockroaches. It spreads termites. If you want a terrible cockroach problem, put down a bunch of fresh mulch in an area and then have a bad rain. That mulch is full of cockroaches, and they are going to come inside your house. It's just the way it is. And most cockroaches in the United States are invasive species anyway. They're not native to this country, but they've spread like wildfire because of urbanization and this landscaping trade. So it's a huge problem. So I would encourage you to, if you can get away with it, be lazier about your landscaping practices. You don't need to mow constantly. You don't need to mulch everything. You don't, if your HOA demands that you do the front yard, maybe leave the backyard or parts of the backyard unraked or unmowed, and let it just go to nature. When I was growing up, we had lots of fireflies, and now looking back, it's because we didn't constantly rake the yard. We let certain sections of the yard basically act as compost piles for all of the oak leaves that we had, and there were tons of fireflies that lived in those oak leaf piles. And they kind of populated the whole neighborhood. We had so many fireflies. Now you don't get away with that because of HOAs. So talk to your HOAs, try to get these rules repealed, try to get them to use fewer landscapers in the area if they're not willing to use no landscapers. If you have shared common space that's just trees and grass and flowers and things, maybe just leave it alone. Talk to the city council about maybe not constantly mowing the sides of the road, or only mow the sides of the busiest roads and leave the more residential areas to go to long shrubs and long grass and long flowers. And you will see improvements in the insect populations in your area. Maybe you'll even see a decline in termites and roaches and ants in your area because you have more diverse predators in the area. So overall, appeal to laziness, appeal to conservation through not messing with things. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Talk to you later.